Kia ora and welcome to another episode of the Leadership Lounge, a space for leaders in healthcare like you to take a moment to pause, to think, to reflect, and to get that energy boost and fresh perspective on the work that you're doing. I'm Katie, I'm your host, and I've worked in healthcare for over 30 years, and I now work with leaders and their teams to help them manage the demands and the complexity of their work so that you can feel hopeful and excited about the amazing work that you get to do. Now that feels a bit of a stretch right now, and I think it's that sort of sense of, oh my goodness, what else is coming? How am I going to keep showing up? This is getting really hard. This is getting quite tiring. There is so much going on in the healthcare system right now. For you as a leader, that can be really hard. There's a lot of stuff to hold. And I've been covering this in different angles, from looking at it through how do you lead through a change that you might not agree with? How do you talk to your teams about that? Through the weekly email I do, the I Am No Jedi email, which, as you know, you can sign up. I'll pop a link in the show notes. But in some of my social media posting, and also through this. So this week, I really wanted to tackle this. How do you show up? How important is how you show up as a leader? And the tricky space, and I don't, by the way, disclosure here, I don't have the magic answer for you here, but it's this idea of this line that you have to walk between being authentically you in this space, but also still leading other people. So this is to do with your leadership presence, your attitude, your energy, the words that you use, because all of those things matter. And all of those things are picked up on, noticed, and they are contagious. That energy that we bring in is contagious to the people that you are leading, and so has a ripple effect. And it's probably why I spend a lot of my time when I'm working one-on-one with people to really support them in understanding who they are as a leader, what they stand for, what their values are, so that at times like this, you're not scrambling around trying to understand that stuff. You know who you are. So what are the options then in terms of how you show up if you've got lots going on? It's tough stuff. It's getting demoralizing or de-energizing, all of that stuff. So you can kind of just paint a magical rose-tinted spectacle over it all. It's all going to be fine. It's all going to be fine. Let's just pretend it's all okay. It'll all just go away. People know it's not okay. People know that there's tough stuff going on. Another option could be to repeat the lines down, just be the kind of the messenger. I'm the messenger here, just repeating the lines and almost create this space of a barrier, an armour between you and the people that you're leading and the message that you're trying to get across. So there's that option. Yeah, I'm not sure if putting up barriers and armours between each other right now is going to help us in the long term. But that's an option for you. Or then there's this space of like complete, oh my goodness, this is terrible. I can't believe what's going on. Being very dismissive and moaning and depressed and just kind of like, well, this is just all hopeless. This is awful. I don't know how we're going to get through it. This is just terrible. I can't believe this is going on. This kind of the opposite of the toxic positivity almost, this kind of like doom, gloom, there is no hope, that very downward looking space. Again, I believe there needs to be a space for you to express that if that's what you're feeling, but in a leadership role, having your peers and this idea of your first team, that's more of a space to have that conversation and how you move from that. So there's all these different options. And I think this is a really interesting point, because that walking that line where you are being authentic and you're being transparent and you're being honest and clear with the people that you are leading, but you're also managing to lift yourself up in some way, takes that extra energy. And that's why leadership jobs are so important, but also why they are not for everybody. You know, that line, if this was easy, everybody would do it kind of thing. And I think I've been really impressed by a couple of conversations that I've had with some incredible leaders over the last week where they've actually been asking that question. And what is outstanding in that is asking the question, noticing how you are showing up is actually the biggest key to all of this. Noticing that how you show up is better today, worse yesterday, terrible today. Noticing it is your opportunity. Now, this comes with a heavy heart for me, I guess, really, because I've messed up here in the past. I have shown up badly, and it has had an impact on the teams I've been working with, and that was not me at my best. And it's one of those moments in my career that I wish I could turn back time and know the stuff I know now and have some of the tools and resources and ideas that I have now. So noticing is important. Now, Brené Brown says that courage starts with showing up and letting ourselves be seen. So I think there's this idea that it's going to take courage to work through what's going on right now in healthcare. And it is important that showing up matters, but also this idea of letting yourself be seen. And that's where we come back to this challenging part of the line. Okay, so how much should I let be seen? One of the books that I've read around this and some great advice that I've gleaned from it is a book called Performance Under Pressure. Perform, I hate it when I get the words wrong. Perform Under Pressure by Dr. Kerry Evans. Now, one of the great stuff in this book, absolutely phenomenal, lots of stuff in it. But the one thing, and it's a really easy one to remember, is this idea of when you're in those kind of tough situations, you kind of step back. It's a 3-step thing, but step back is the first one. And this is that idea of just noticing what's going on. In my head, that's that noticing, okay, I'm in a situation that feels uncomfortable, tough, whatever the word is. Let's just step back. And then you step up. And this is where you get to decide, how do I need to show up right now? What is the space I'm going into? What's the space that's here? How do I need to show up? What's my choice here? This is a choice decision. This is in your control. And that's you stepping up into moving from where you are into where you want to be. And then the third action is to step back in. So you're then re-engaging. So I think it's really important that as leaders, we don't just run and hide and stay hidden or behind the screen, that we are out there walking alongside people. Now, I think it can be really hard in that space when you're struggling to manage the things that you need for yourself, understanding what it means for you, and making sense of your emotions. So there's a couple of probably having a plan for those different levels of energy that you've got and the different levels of support that you've got around you is actually one of the key things. And a little while ago, I created a model that really enables people to come up with that plan for all those different scenarios of whether you've got loads of energy, no energy, support crew around you or no support around you. And I put it into a series of emails and then created a model, and I've delivered it as a couple of workshops, and it's gone down really well. So I'm actually doing an online webinar that actually runs through this model called Spark and Support model. And it's exactly the thing when you are in that space of, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? You've got your plan. Because often when we're in these tough moments like now, you need to have worked it out. What do you need to keep showing up? What do you need to be the leader that you want to be? When you're choosing to step up, what's going to help you step up and into that space? Because it's not an endless supply of energy that we've got. We need to refuel. And what are the things that do that? So I'll pop a link to the Spark and Support webinar that I'm going to be running in November, because I think it's one of the tactics, one of the tools that's really going to help people through these moments. But I went, as I do, searching on the internet to see what else is out there, and I cracked up because there was this it's kind of like a bit of a countdown. So I found 9 things great leaders do in difficult times, 7 ways to show great leadership in tough times, and then I think the last one was a three strategies for leading through difficult times. So it's curious, right? Because all of these articles, I think all of them, maybe not the first one. Anyway, a lot of articles out there that are written in the period where we were all in lockdowns through COVID. So there's actually quite a lot of lessons that have come from there and articles that were being written in that time that can be useful in this context. So the first one, as I pulled out the sort of the gems from each of those ones, and as usual, I will pop the links to those articles in the show notes. So the first one, it pains me to say this, but it was actually an article about, or written from a context of a military perspective and an army perspective. And so, as you know, I like to steer away from those kind of analogies, but there was I like to lean into these things. And there was a couple of things that stood out for me. And the first thing that stood out in this article was this idea that your team needs to believe that you're in control of yourself, so that they've got confidence in the decisions, the communication, all of that kind of stuff. So I guess this was speaking to that. Why it's important to tackle this. Why is it important to have this conversation about how do I show up as a leader? Because your team needs to believe that you're in control of yourself. And that's a lot about the work that Dr. Kerry Evans talks about in his book. So that being in control of how we're feeling, really important. The other thing that came from that article was this great idea to imitate the leaders who inspire you. Who are the people, that you see around you, that you've worked with, that inspire you? What would they do? And this made me smile significantly because a great memory I have, I ran, some time ago now, a group through a read-along of Brené Brown's Dare to Lead. And it was an absolutely phenomenal time that we had. There was these 8 amazing leaders, diverse from different places around, different professions. It was great, and we worked through the exercises, and it was a really cool time. It kind of felt like an after school activity because everyone came along after their day had finished. We had a great time and learnt a lot, built great connections that I know are still in use today. And I was given a gift at the end of this session which made me cry. They're so beautiful. It's a set of pens, because I'm a bit of a stationery freak, a set of pens and a set of pencils, and that actually had printed on the side of them, what would Brené Brown do? So I just crack up. And depending on what situation you're in, and depending on who you are inspired by in terms of leadership, that can be a really useful kind of like little, it can make you smile a little bit, take you out of yourself, but also that fresh perspective that I'm always so keen on sharing. What would so-and-so do in this situation? So they're the 2 I got from that article. So the next one on our countdown of articles, which was 7 somethings, there was a lot more in terms of that challenge of how do we be human in it. The being human was a big part of this article, and it's the reminder that, what did it say? It said none of us are immune to worry, stress, and uncertainty that times like this bring. And I think acknowledging the humanness that we all bring into this space is really important. So not putting on a front, being open about flaws, mistakes and fears, which again, it's about that line. You don't want to be sharing all the fears, but how do you put that into that context? And it's about, there's no right way. I don't think there's a right way or wrong way of doing this. It's about exploring it. And it may be a thin line and we might fall off it from time to time. We might tip one way and then the other way. But there is this ability that you've got to be human in these situations. The other thing it also did was talking about this sort of this is what we do, and that connected very much to this idea of hope, that we've been in tough times before. Healthcare will face tough times in the future. It's faced tough times in the past. We can and we will get through this together. It's that belief in why we're doing what we're doing, that purposefulness about why we're here, and that knowing, the belief and the hope that we can do this. And someone was asking me the other day in a workshop, and I said, look, I know I don't have the answers, but I know we can get there. I know together we can do this. And it's that idea of building a community and believing in that. The other thing it talked about was having a good handle on all the facts. And it's really interesting in between what's printed in the press and emails and translations of various different things and gossip and rumour mongering and all that kind of jazz. As a leader, it's really important that you have a good handle on the facts. And that if you don't know something, say, I don't know and I'll get back to you. That wasn't clear in this. That's a good question. I'll go and find out. The last thing from this article was about adding encouragement, but not in that sort of sappy, fake positivity, meaningless way, that can kind of you're doing great while waving and running in the opposite direction. It was the encouragement that you get when someone is walking alongside you. Is the being there in those tough moments, being prepared to sit with the uncomfortableness of how people are feeling. That is encouragement and support. That is walking alongside people. Oh no! Look to my notes. There was one more in this one actually, and it's a pretty good one actually. It was around being future focused. It's around having your eye on the horizon and the looking forward. That yes, you've got to deal with today and you've got to deal with what's going on right now and this week and this month. But leaders are also there to be taking that long view and future focused and being patient in that. So knowing that we're going to get through this, that belief in it, but also looking forward and reminding people where we're heading. And I'm reminded of when I interviewed Owen Eastwood, who wrote the book Belonging, this concept of the whakapapa of healthcare in New Zealand. And right now where we're at, and the sun is shining on us right now in this moment, but if we're all standing shoulder to shoulder, looking back to where healthcare has come from and that history of where it's come from, this is our time now for the stuff that we're dealing with. But it's also about looking forward into the future and the people that are going to come after us, the people that are going to continue doing the work in healthcare. This is about us preparing the time, the soil and the foundations for those people that are coming afterwards, that generational passing on the honour and privilege of providing healthcare to people. So it's sitting in that idea of that long view. Okay. What else did I come up with and what else have I found in there? So again, another line from Brené Brown that was often used, this idea of courage over comfort, and that courage is different from fearlessness, but it's important that you step out of your comfort zone and move forward. So it's this different thing. You can be afraid, but you've got to be courageous. So those two things are different. And I remember, I think it was Susan David in Emotional Agility. It's like courage is fear walking. This idea of just moving forward. And again, it's that long game, that one step at a time. And then a beautiful idea around caring transparency. And this was great. And I was having to read the thing a couple of times because I was like, okay, tell me more about this caring transparency, because that's really interesting. And it's about getting ideas out into the open, making what is often invisible visible. So what's under the surface of what are people saying? And I think this is a great opportunity in leadership because it's about showing interest and curiosity. And if you go back to some of the other ideas, it's being connected with people so that actually you are able to pull out all the things that are under the surface. But what that does is it helps put you as a leader on the same page as everyone else. We can actually go, this is what we're dealing with. This is what's going on. Okay, how do we fix this together? So it's a lot more about being on the same page. And a beautiful, beautiful quote in this one around, let the bright light of your own humanity pop the bubble and reconnect with those around you. I'll read that one again. Let the bright light of your own humanity pop the bubble and reconnect with those around you. A couple of the leaders I've been speaking to, when asking them the question, okay, so what's the answer? How do we get through this? How do we keep the energy up? It was each other. It was staying connected. Comes back time and time again to being together, to standing together. Working out who's your first team, who are your peers, listening to each other, taking down the armour, dropping the ego, and connecting with people over things. So I do believe that we can get through this. I do believe that we can create a healthcare system that is both fabulous to work in and serves the communities as we need to. I do believe that. It's not to say that it's not hard right now, and it's not to say that there's not an awful lot of work to be done. But I know there's some great stuff going on, and I know that when we start sharing those stories and connecting and reconnecting with each other, that more and more is going to become obvious about the way forward and the next steps. And also remembering that we're in this for the long game. The need to provide healthcare is not going away anytime soon. And so we've got a it's like a marathon on a marathon, but it's that long view, and we can be patient through this. So I hope through that kind of like cacophony of stuff, I managed to pull out maybe a couple of ideas for you to just pick up on around, okay, how do you hold that line about noticing how you are showing up, realising that how you show up has an impact on your staff, your team, those around you. They're going to understand if you're scared. They're going to understand if you're grumpy. They're going to know if you're fearful. They're going to spot it in the words that you're saying, the way that you hold yourself, the look in your face. We can't hide that. But actually embracing that humanity that we've all got, that the fears, the uncertainties that we're all holding on to, embracing that is okay. But using the Dr. Kerry Evans idea of, okay, that's how I'm at. What do I need? How do I step up? What am I stepping up to? And so I can step back in and engage. A reminder again that you can sign up to the weekly No Jedi email, which has lots of these ideas condensed into a little bit more, and it's aimed to be a bright spot in your inbox. It is short and sweet, and there's something to just grab hold of and grab your attention and go, okay, that's enough to make me laugh, smile, or hopeful for this week. And the webinar that's coming up in November. But prior to that, I'm also doing a couple of shorter webinars looking at the Healthy Mind Platter, which is a great tool. I think I've mentioned, and I've popped some links in the past in this podcast, but got a few of those coming up. So I'll pop all the links to those. All the links you'll find in the show notes. Thanks again for listening to the Leadership Lounge. I hope you found your moment of pause, reflection, and fresh perspective. I'm Katie, I'm your host, and I will see you next week in another episode of the Leadership Lounge.